Welcome back, everyone, to the Feathers of Hope podcast series. Joining us today is Talon Bird. Welcome, Talon. Samantha Crowe and Chelsea Perrault. Today we're going to talk about our history and healing. And perhaps we could just begin by talking about how did Feathers of Hope get involved in the work of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission and its work tied to the Indian residential school system?
Sure. So just like anything within our communities, a lot of work started with connections. So personal connections and community connections and getting to really start learning who works with the TRC and really our champions champion and advocating for Feathers of Hope to the individuals who are working for the TRC to try and make sure that young people are being included in the voices. And so Kim Murray and Mandy Wesley were lawyers for the TRC commissioner, and having a meeting and advocating with those two powerful ladies, and just asking if is there ever going to be space for young people to be part of this conversations, because we are just as impacted through intergenerational trauma to be involved. And so we were actually then contacted so that we can meet with the three commissioners to really discuss what was going on, what is young people's experience in the matter, what are we hoping to achieve. And after that, Feathers of Hope was invited to go and attend the different TRC education events to talk with other young people and how to bridge those conversations, as well as the TRC conferences where where different individuals who are survivors were sharing their statements, as well as we were included in the final closing with the TRC as well. So just making sure that young people were being a part of the stories, because we're just as much of the conversation as other individuals as well.
Anyone else would like to add to that, or we can?
What could I add? No, it's good. She really encapsulated everything. It was identified as an issue amongst young people that, there are still residual effects and, not only inherent rights and responsibilities, but also inherent trauma as well that, communities needed to come together to work on. Not only from like a young perspective, but, also bridging that relationship between youth and elders. So not only that, but having that network that we built, we were able to bridge that gap and start working with the TRC closely. So, yeah.
Do youth face some of the same issues today?
Yeah. So as I was saying before on the prior podcast, young people, when we have been doing this work, young people have been going through the similar issues either for for the past 30 years plus. In any kind of report or inquest that we read, we learned that young people have been dealing and experiencing the same issues, either the exact same or actually worse today. So really wanted to make sure and honed in on the fact that young people are still struggling, and while there has been some progress, there's still a lot of youth who are falling between the cracks and who need to have their needs and their rights being met.
Yeah, I agree. And not only are the same issues happening, but I think as time is going on too, there's new issues that are coming to the surface with technology and anything else that's going on.
As you know, healing is obviously necessary and important. So, how does this work link to the conversations in your own family, do you think?
Well, like going back on it, when we talk about intergenerational trauma, that's going through generations, and that's within my own family. Like for me, both my grandparents went to residential school. My mother went to Indian day school, and so that affected my grandparents' parenting styles, my mother's parenting styles, which then affected me and my siblings. But I think it's important because as the older generations and the survivors of residential school are healing, it's important because I think as we're healing as youth, the older generations are seeing that and then opening themselves up to start to try on their healing journey. I've noticed as I've worked on lots of youth advocacy, since then I've watched like my grandma quit drinking and start her own healing journey through her traumas. So it's definitely a big impact on my own family.
And I think I want to reflect too. It's and Chelsea kind of touched on this a little bit, it's not just residential schools, it was day schools, it was a 60 scoop, it was the impact of the church and things like that. There is more than one trauma that was happening to our people that has impacted and greatly have provided trauma to our community members. And it's not to say that some people have positive experiences in these places, and I want to acknowledge and recognize that like those are their experiences and that happens too. But there was far greater numbers who had much negative experiences, and to realize that it's you don't have one story, one impact. Not everyone experiences the same thing, but there's still the impact that we feel as young people today, and noticing the mental health problems, the abuse, or any other kind of things that are possibly within our families and what people experience. So it's just really making sure that I think the first thing is just recognizing, acknowledging it in your family, and where do you go from there? Because everyone's healing journey is different. And so what is going to work for you and what is going to work for your family is going to be different for everyone.
Absolutely. How can families begin bridging these difficult conversations?
Well, I think it kind of says it in the question, right? Like bridging these conversations is by having these conversations in the first place. Like when we brought all these young people together, they identified these issues that are going on within their communities. And that was the start of not only for our framework, but us for, eventually build up to creating policy. And that's what it simply comes back down to is advocacy. These positions were called Youth Amplifier, and it pretty much says it in the name. Like we were able to take these young people and bring them up to voices where actually people were listening. Not only their leadership, but, all three levels, municipal, federal, provincial. And that's what it comes back down to, as much as, everybody wants to talk about healing and stuff like that, like they never actually talk about the work that goes into it. That's sitting down with these families, like identifying the issues and also talking about, what's the solution, right? And then when you're able to do that, you're able to create programming, you're able to create network, you're able to like show other communities examples of like, positive love and friendship and stuff. And that's what we did with Feathers of Hope. And we were able to, secure funding. We were able to create toolkits. We were able to make modules. We made a website. Like there's so much stuff. And that's what it comes back to is actually identifying these issues, creating and actually doing that healing process. And then, you get the advocacy, you get the group of people that, they want to do better, not only for themselves, they want to create a legacy, not only for themselves and their family, but for their community, and then that's what we keep doing. I don't know how long Feathers of Hope has existed, but to like continuously coming back to it, regardless if, we pause for a bit and stuff like that. But, that was the start of it. You have to have these conversations, and that's the basic thing. Have these conversations, and then the rest will take you where you need to go.
And I think that There's a Hope created that space for young people to have those conversations, so they felt safe at the forums and elsewhere to start having those conversations. And I think that kind of helped transfer back home when they went through the communities, or they went back to their urban locations or anywhere they were, to have those conversations, because they recognize that their voice is important, their feelings matter, what they do matters, and to start relaying that information to their family. And we'll never say it's going to be easy. It's never easy to have those conversations, especially if there's been silence for so long. But I mean, it's about bravery and the young people being brave, and we talk about creating safe spaces, but it's about young people being brave, and they're having these conversations. But it's not only up to young people, it has to be the parents and the grandparents and other family members having these conversations as well, because it's not only on young people to fall back and save and heal their family and their community. It has to be a whole community measure doing everything. And so it's if we can everyone just kind of really put their hand in and work together for these things. So if someone starts the conversation, hopefully the other person can be open and flexible and begin to share as well.
Absolutely. And I think like with some families and some family members who may be silent or not ready to speak on that, it's not really like they're hiding it from many of the youth. Like they're very observant. We can pick up when our family's hurting. And it is hard to have those conversations and to hear those experiences from your family members, from your parents, your grandparents, your aunties, uncles, whoever may be in your life. But they are important. I find that some of the most important conversations are the most uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. No, I was just going to say Feathers of Hope created that space, and it will continue to do so. And that's what's important when it comes back to healing and having these conversations with your families. You have to start somewhere. And then once you do that, once you have a collective of people actively healing, that's when you create legacy on a community level.
That's true.
That's beautiful.
Darlene, was there anything you'd like to add to that?
I think that these conversations, as are extremely difficult. And I know that some youth have had success in initiating and then the family responding. However, there are others that have not and refuse to. And so Feathers of Hope is that safe support for those youth as they begin to do and have those conversations. Whether or not the family is receptive, Feathers of Hope is always there to fall back on for support. And I think that's important.
Okay, where do you think we need to go from here if we want to build healthier and safer communities?
Yeah, it's a very big question, and I think for me personally, I think it's going to take a community, it's going to take our society in order to achieve the healthy and safety communities that we deserve to have, because everyone deserves to have a healthy, safe, and happy community to live in, to thrive in. And it's not fair that young people have to go through so many different hardships to just in order to survive. So I think for me personally, it's about everyone taking accountability and stepping in to their different roles. So whether that means if you are on your own learning journey or your own healing journey, it's stop perpetuating different kind of violence to your own people, to other people, or it is talking about doing programming and education for young people. It's making sure that there is food in people's tummies and a bed and a roof over their head. It can look like so many different things, but it's going to take a community of multiple actions in order to achieve this, and wanting to make sure that we are doing this together in an inclusive space, because Feathers of Hope is inclusive. And as an Ojibwe person, I practice being an inclusive. We follow the medicine wheel, we follow 7 sacred grandfather teachings and things like that. And it is about being inclusive. It's about loving everybody. It's about having that space and holding that space, but also holding those boundaries too. So essentially, in the long run, it's just how do we keep ourselves accountable? Like, what is your role in making sure that you play out your role into this future that we want to see?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I think back of like something in school of, like starting with myself. I work on my own personal healing journey first before I'm able to help other people, help my family, stuff like that. And I think that's where it really starts from, is yourself as an individual, and then being able to work from there and help other people in their healing journey. And I think it's important to also keep in mind that it's not like a linear journey. It's not a destination you're going to get to. You're going to have many ups and downs throughout life. That's the way life goes. And but that's why we're given all those 7 grandfather teachings. Those are what help us go through our healing journey. I find for myself, especially, and people in my community are really big on the 7 grandfather teachings.
Yeah, no. Where we need to go from here, uh, it's not black and white. It's not linear, but at the same time, it's got to be impactful. And like Sam says, we all got to hold ourselves accountable. And what I mean by that, in the sense of like, Feathers of Hope is a network. It's a network all across Turtle Island. There's people all over the world that have heard of Feathers of Hope already, all the way even like to Tokyo, which is crazy. And that's the actual fact. And when it comes back down to it, like, change is created by breaking out of comfortability. Change is created by creating change. Like, what do we want to do? We don't want to live in the same old, oppressive ways that have been posed on our communities. Like, we want to change this, right? So where we need to go is what we've been doing, creating that healing space, creating that safe journey, helping these people find the tools and the skills they need to improve not only their lives, but their communities, and just continue to support them. Like, I don't know how many people out of Feathers of Hope become lawyers now, or doctors and stuff like that. And that's what we're doing. We're creating this change. That's what Feathers of Hope is. But then it also bleeds into creating that change on community levels, on provincial levels, on federal levels. And as long as we keep holding ourselves accountable, holding our leaders accountable, calling out what we talked about changing, because it's not only when we brought these kids to come talk about these problems, like, you don't want to just sit around and talk about the issues. We talked about solutions. You know what I mean? And whether it's creating more language programming, whether it's, being able to allocate more funding towards, counseling or, different medical services for both physical and mental health, or even spiritual health, having accesses to medicine, simple things like that, and having these implemented through communities by just supporting the young people that we already have. Like, we're well on our way. And as long as we keep ourselves accountable, we call out the injustices that we see, and we continue to advocate as youth amplifiers with or without a position, I feel like, that's what we need to keep doing. And then, the rest will come with it. All these different relationships we had, we never sought these out. They came to us just because we were doing what we do, And so that's important to remember.
And I think also just want to make it clear that it's not just a conversation for Indigenous people, it's for non-Indigenous people. This is for our society as a whole, that we're having these things. And so it's about working together. It's having those relationships and to keep moving forward.
Absolutely.
What really amazed me was how young people themselves, even though they recognize the need for themselves to do their own healing, the reason they wanted to do it was so that the young kids coming behind them didn't have to go through what they went through. And I think that's just utterly powerful, when you think about young people and the fact that they have that kind of insight and desire to change the world.
And I think that's the key part is everyone wants this change. People want to see our people thriving. People want to see everyone thriving. And it's about what are the steps in order to make this happen together, and not assuming that people don't want to be involved, not assuming that it's only for other people. There's a lot of assumptions for folks that shouldn't really have assumptions about things, and just recognizing that we want to move forward as young people, as Indigenous people, but also as non-Indigenous people, as adults, as different community members. People want we all want to be safe and healthy and happy. And so it's about just trying to achieve it as much as possible, and trying to get out of your bubble and out of your comfort level, as Talon was saying, and being uncomfortable with the change, because there's no way that you're going to be able to break the mold and have anything different if you don't have that little bit of being uncomfortable.
And I think it's also important to remember that, you don't have one conversation about healing and then you're healed. It's a journey, right? And, you're going to go through stops and starts along the way, but it's really a lifelong process. And with that, I'd like to really express my sincere gratitude for the sharing that you've done today, and for joining us on this podcast. And we look forward to hearing further insights from you moving forward. Miigwech.
Rich, thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.